Well, hello. We are here again for another Sunday Champ Chat. We are all here in the background. I'm going to bring everybody in. But first, we need to discuss the rules of the show tonight. What is the first rule of Fight Club? We do not talk about the championship. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. And I forgot what I'm doing. Messed it up. Say hi, everyone, before I do the video because I can't find it.
Hi, everyone.
How are you,
Hi,
everyone?
everyone. What?
Hello. We already did hellos. We're back. Right. Another champ chat, and we've already screwed up the start of it, or I've screwed up the start of it. So anyway, I apologize, ladies and gents.
Pundit. Shoot the rehearsal.
Shoot the rehearsal. There we go.
That's the way we roll.
That works. But sometimes we can shoot the rehearsal and try and do something decent. So who is here tonight? We are all here tonight except Joshy. And who is in the chat? We have Steve Barton, Chica Brewer, Paul Kelly, David Carr, PCH Scuba, Ruth H. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Drew's here, Ted Nelson, loads of people. Great. So, tonight, what are we going to discuss? We are going to discuss the championship and how tight it was last season. We have had lots and lots of discussions about some of our players not getting the opportunities to break into the team and have a little bit of time to work themselves in. Well, that was because we were doing so well last season. And that was fair enough. We were going for promotion the entire season. Now, if you had a look at the championship last season, we have a different problem now for this season and our players. Almost anywhere in that league, we are going to be chasing something. We are either, first of all, going to be trying to get away from the relegation zone. As soon as we get somewhere in that mid-table mediocrity group, we are then chasing for the playoffs. As soon as we get near the playoffs, maybe then we're kind of safe for the rest of the season. But if you're that close, you are seriously going for a playoff spot. So where are we going to end up and how tight is it going to be? That's generally the gist of the chat today. I do have some graphics with loads of little colors that are going to destroy your eyes if you're colorblind. So I apologize for that. But it took me a while to do them and I didn't have time to play with all the colors. So what are we up to, guys? How are you all doing? Let's do that first.
Fantastic. Playing Demolition Derby with my son, building his car. So he's got one coming up, his first ever. So doing some welding and outside in the heat, and it was hot. It was hot.
You do look like you've got that weld burn.
Yeah, a little bit. I could feel it.
Well, I'm just melting in the British summer at the moment. We're not built for this. Really not.
We had a mad thunderstorm today.
I'd love a thunderstorm. I really would.
Well, you need to come here because it's been raining here all overnight and all morning.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, I was a bit nervous when I saw the title for the show come up. First rule of Fight Club, I thought, is don't talk about Fight Club. I thought, well, if we're not going to talk about anything, it's not going to be a great show.
Okay, so John, let's throw the first question to you. You have the most kind of experience of seasons of the championship. How tight do you think in your head in general for mid-table teams here? Now, obviously, if you're at the very top or the bottom, it's a different scenario, but being comfortable mid-table, is there such a thing, or is it just last season was crazy?
Okay, wait, I'm going to pause.
What's it?
Yeah.
How's that for awesome news?
Well done.
Yes.
Excellent.
If you've been watching Welcome to Wrexham, you'll know who Archie is. Yeah, I saw it today too. His mom posted he is cancer-free, in remission, whatever. I don't know what the right words are, but yeah, he's out of the hospital, doing well, and I'm so happy for them. That family been through it. A kid that age having cancer. Yeah, that kid's been through a lot. So good to see that he's doing well.
Yeah, and great work, Steve, on the $5 super chat. So, and even better news for Archie. So there we go. Sorry to pause that, guys. Had to do that.
No bother.
Back to you, John.
Oh, well, that was far more important than listening to me moan about Championship mid-table. No, I would say no. There probably isn't any comfortable mid-table. I think probably if you go back, I think your graphics will probably show it. I did a bit of homework myself today. The last 4 or 5 years, it's been getting tighter and tighter each season. I think the outlier was possibly the COVID season, I think, off the top of my head. But I think the gap between sort of what you would classify as mid-table and the last relegation spot is, I mean, it's nothing. It's a couple of games. So, there isn't really I don't think there's probably going to be a time where you would sit comfortably mid-table looking down. I mean, it's probably going to be last 2 games of the season, if I'm being honest. You know, it'll probably go down to the wire like it normally does in the Championship. Having been through it many a times, you get to 4 or 5 games to go and you kind of think you're safe, and then on below you wins one week and you lose, and all of a sudden you're back right in it again. So it's a horrible league when you're looking over your shoulder. I won't lie.
Yeah, you had the crazy season when you came down. How far up the table were you before you started hitting that slide?
We were 6th, I think, when we. But right, caveat here is we beat West Brom at home. I think it was 2-1 or 2-0. I forget now. But in John Eustace's last game, that put us 6th. That night, we were a Friday night game. It put us 6th in the table. However, the thing that everyone seems to kind of forget, because of course the whole Rooney thing and our slide down the table makes sort of a good headline. Even though we went 6th that night, we were only 3 points away from 18th. So that gives you an indication of the tightness of the league. That one game separates you from 6th to 18th. It's.
How early on was that? Was it September or so?
It was October, I think.
It was October, okay.
Yeah, I think it was like late September or early October. It was we were coming up to the first international break, I think it was. So I think it was probably October time.
Yeah. Well, that will follow in nicely with one of the graphics I put together, because what I did was I took last season's results and I broke it down on a match per match basis, and then I picked out different points. So after 10 matches, at 23 matches, and then I think I did 36, and then 5 matches from the end as well. So we can actually gauge it last season how tight everything was for how long in the season. Kind of one of these where do you want to be by Christmas scenarios. We can have a look at it, and is there anywhere you can be that you're comfortable? Probably not. But I have got it broken down there by graphics a little bit. So anywhere in particular we want to start? Will I bring up last season's results?
We'll start there.
Okay. So just looking at last season's results there, mid-table, we're just going to hit 12th and 13th, right in the centre. So that's 58 points. And in order to get up into the last playoff spot was 68 and some goal difference. So that's 10 points in an entire season there, from completely mid-table to the playoffs at the end. And then sticking with mid-table going down, we have 57 points going down to 49. So that's, again, another 10 points. So officially you wouldn't be out of the danger in that scenario probably till the last 3 games from a mid-table point. And anybody below that, you could literally be down to the second last match, trying to make sure you don't get dumped into that last spot. And it isn't unheard of for 3 or 4 spots to jump you if everybody has wins on the final day and you hit that loss in the wrong place.
Yeah,
It's happened. It's happened multiple times.
well,
Two
that's what
multiple
happened.
times.
I think it's John shaking his head. I think it's exactly
did.
what happened to them. They
We didn't fall into it. We were already in it, but we went
Okay.
into it with like basically
Close. You could have
it was.
jumped.
Yeah, it was one of those where we went into it where everyone says it's in our hands. We got a home game against Norwich. If we win that game, surely somebody else is going to drop points. We just needed somebody to draw. But then I think it was the first time it had actually happened where I think all 6 or 7 sides in the relegation fight all won on the last day. So I mean, it would only happen to us, of course. But I think the interesting thing about the table you put up there, Paddy, is I think on the last day, for example, I think Derby, Preston, Hull, Luton and Plymouth, no, not Plymouth, sorry, just those 4. At one point during the day in that last game, all of them were safe at one point. So they were swapping out there was never like one particular person that stayed in there for the entire game. It was chop and changing all over the place. I remember it. The live table, there was every 20 minutes was a different name in that final relegation spot. So yeah, it's great TV and great entertainment for a neutral. I wouldn't recommend being involved in it, honestly.
Of course. Okay, so which one do we want to hit first, guys? Is there any particular way of the two? Do you want to have a breakdown of the season or a breakdown of multiple seasons to see how they vary? What's better?
Now let's go through this season, and then we can spread it out over the last few or whatever.
Okay, so this is breakdown again. So at the moment I'm showing the end of the season, and as I said, I broke it down into 10 matches, 23 matches, 36 matches and 41. And as I move from slide to slide, we'll be moving over here, and then this will adjust to show where people were at different points. So let's try 10 matches. Start of a season. Interestingly, the top 4 are all playoff / winners after the first 10. Not unheard of, obviously. You might think that. But then the other 2 were Coventry City, who ended up in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th position. And Bristol City were just 1 spot above relegation after 10 matches, which shows them the massive jump that you can make across the season. So for anyone out there who's worried that we're going to have a bad start to our season, oh God, we've got some horrible teams and let's hope it goes well. But if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world, as long as you take a few points, of course.
Well, even bigger there, Paddy, is QPR, who were last after 10 matches and finished pretty much dead mid-table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yellow is bottom mid-table, yeah. With them finishing in there.
You also got
15th.
Millwall down there,
Millwall.
of course. They went into the last game of the season with a chance of getting in the playoffs. So yeah, slow start doesn't necessarily ruin your season. Not in this league.
No.
Okay. Anything else to say on this, or do we want to go straight through them?
No, that's good early.
Okay. Moving into 23 matches, full half season. Where did we end up? Okay. Here we go. We have top 4 are nicely up there with a little bit of a gap. So they're starting to get a little bit of momentum. Yeah, so the top 4 here are at 68 points, and then Blackburn Rovers are on 52. So now we're starting to see a little bit of a gap from those top 4, the better teams. Coventry City is, 10th-ish? Yeah, 10th. And then Bristol is down in 14th, and they made the playoffs as well. So points-wise, it's this one. Points-wise then, so we have 29 points for mid-table, and 8 points to get up into the playoffs at that point, which actually is more than I thought at this point. just with how it ended up at the end of the season. But then coming down to relegation zone is 8 points below it. So the gap is there, and it kind of tends to sit around there with different people taking points. I'm surprised that the gap is so close to the end of the table.
So basically, it's 16 points from playoffs to relegation. Is that what you're halfway? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, if you add them both together, because here 37 is the playoffs, and the first relegation is 21.
Which is a pretty big gap for halfway. That's five wins.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Interestingly, like, it doesn't get much bigger actually for the second half with the way we know that the season ends. So I guess from the second half onwards, everybody started to pull points from each other, whereas some people lost a bit of ground early, or it just keeps switching.
It gets tighter
for a while. It could get tighter for a while. Yeah. Okay, so looking at Bristol City, they made playoffs and they are still down here in the bottom half of the table. So that's 12, 13, 14th place at that point. Luton Town were 31 points and they dropped down 25 points. Sorry, 25 points. And who's the highest at the moment that gets dumped down?
Luton.
Luton.
Which is a bit of a surprise, because you'd say halfway. We've always said in the Championship, if you halfway through the season, just Christmas time, whatever, if you're on 25 points, you're on course to survive. So I know it wouldn't have been their ambition, but you would have said they weren't. I wouldn't have thought they would have too many fears at that point.
No, but if you look at it from just a points perspective, they're only 4 points clear. Despite being that many, they're that many spots ahead, but they're still only 4 points clear of relegation. So, I mean, it was still tight. It was tight. It was just and they're
already 4 wins out of the playoffs. So they would have been thinking a real struggle to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're looking at this 21 points, 2 losses in a row, 6 points, will take you all the way up to here. So that's Derby County in 13th position. Just a bad string that includes 2 losses and everybody else doing well. So you might need 3 or 4 matches to lose it to everybody, but a bad run there of just two matches could seriously dent you on that one. Also here, who came down? Norwich City. So Norwich City have done well with their points, and they are in for sixth spot at the moment in the playoffs, and they end up getting dropped right down to centre table, 13th at the end. So we're seeing lots of movement through these different.
Yeah, that's, to me, that's an interesting one, because you can, I mean, just looking over and where they end up, they just fell off a cliff. You know what I mean? At a certain point, that's pretty wild.
It is worth mentioning with Norwich, of course, they had Borja Sainz, who was, I think, the league top goal scorer for the first half of the season. I mean, I only know that because obviously I play EFL fantasy football, and he was kind of your captain every week for the first half of the season, because that lad just scored goals every week. I think when Sargent came back from injury, I don't think he barely scored between then and the end of the season. So unfortunately, their goals tally just dropped off a cliff, as did their form, sadly. And I think the manager lost his job, didn't he, towards the end of the season as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, sure. So next one up then, here we have 36 matches. So 10 matches from the end of the season. And in the center of the table, we are at 48 points. And oh wow, that's a big drop. 48 points dropping down to 32.
Yeah.
So at this point, we had a gap of 16, which closed up to a gap of 10 in the final 10. Ooh, that's nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are looking. A lot of people are starting to look safe here. At this point, they're thinking everything's going okay, and some people have seriously dropped out on it. So who drops down from this group? We have Norwich City and Watford were the highest, and they get dumped down quite a bit. No one else really jumping up. So it has kind of separated at this stage, though, for the end of it. So we only have Norwich City and Watford kind of out of their zone, and then the Sheffield Wednesday, Millwall, and Swansea move up closer to the playoff spots. We have the top 5 are all in the playoffs and end up there. Coventry is now very close as well. They're only 1 spot out at this point. Interesting.
I think the interesting thing there is you look at Bristol City's points difference between 23 games and 36 games. They went on a hell of a run to go from where they were to get top 6.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one to catch. Yeah, they were well down. They were down below Coventry when we last looked at it, and then they've overtaken Coventry and pushed right up there.
Do some quick math. That's they got what's my math right? 29 points.
Yep.
In that run of games.
In 10 games.
13.
Oh, sorry, 13. 13. I was going to say 13. Yeah, 13. That's still amazing, isn't it? That's
29 points out of 13 games. That's
well over 2.
That is a hell of a run.
I seem to remember them also playing some of the big boys because I think they beat Sheffield United.
I'm going to pull it up. I'll look at it.
I could have sworn they went on a really good run and they beat Sheffield United, and I think they may have even nicked a draw against Leeds or Burnley. I may be wrong.
Let's see, sure.
But it's like I said to you guys the other week. I said that you get towards that end of the season in that last 10 games, the bottom 6 teams turn into prime Barcelona and just start winning every week. No explanation for it. Happens every damn season.
desperation.
Yeah, it's just pure desperation.
Okay, so moving up then to the last 5. Just having a quick scan here. Coventry took 10 points in 5 matches. Middlesbrough took 2 points in that run of 5 matches. Ugh, nasty. Who else do we have? Derby County took a decent chunk. 10 points in 5 matches.
Didn't that coincide with Eustace going in there towards the end as well?
It probably would be the last 10 total, but these are the last 5 added. Okay, so things are definitely starting to settle. We have our top 6 that stayed there. We have most of the upper table settled in there, with only Norwich and Watford still to move down in the last 5 matches. And then the bottom area shakes out a little bit, but most of the bottom table survive and are above the zone at the moment. Okay, points wise then, we have 53 points from mid-table up to 62 at the last promotion, so we're at 11 points there, and then from 53 down to the bottom 3 we're on 11 as well. So we can see as we're going through it, there is a bit of flux and flexibility with the 10 that we ended up on. Sometimes we had 12, 13, and then we had it even tighter at one stage as well. So it does move around a little bit to fool people into being comfortable, and then everything changes.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is the last one, and then we go back to obviously our final tally and total there. Cardiff City. Oh, hang on. Yeah, in those final 5 as well, Cardiff City then only took 2 points.
In the last 5 games. Yep.
Yeah, in the last 5 games.
Norwich only took 3 out of their last 5 too. So that,
yeah, because they dropped seriously down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Watford only took 4.
Just fine. Have a look at Preston North End.
I can say they only took 7 points out of the last 10 games.
Yeah. 1 point out of the last 5.
Yeah.
For
7 out of the last 10.
For
Wow,
North End. Yeah.
1 out of the last 5, 7 out of the last 10.
Yeah.
It's dropping like a lead balloon, isn't it? Preston North End.
Okay, so let's go back to the start. Right, so we had a little bit of a discussion in the Discord with a comment about bringing in new players. Can we bring, like, in our scenario, will we be bringing in new players and giving them chances, younger players, or are they only going to get their shot if someone messes up? How do we see this? Because for us, we're always going to be playing for something here, I think. Going up through the levels, get away from the relegation, get up through the mid-table, start pushing for playoffs. And once we're anywhere near playoffs, we're pushing for that. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of opportunity there to bring in your FALs or a new version of FAL, loan players, etc. If loan players come in, they need to play. But how do you get a loan player who is good enough to kind of guarantee a first spot?
They would have to be the quality of like an Owen Beck or someone like that. They couldn't be like a Mo Farl, a Seb Ravan. These guys, Harry Ashfield, aren't going to get a start.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because it could you could look at it a lot of different ways and think, okay, you want to be playing young players just looking ahead to the future, but also
That's the long game,
not to the risk of getting relegated, though. You know what I mean? So there's it's a hard line you got to toe there. That's you can't play too many young players like that looking forward to the future, but at the same time, you also don't want to just play old veterans and and be losing those guys and not be building something behind them. You know what I mean? Not have something coming up behind. It's a hard topic to figure out.
It depends on your definition of young players, though, doesn't it? I think realistically, it's a bit of a myth that teams play. The only teams that realistically do focus on young players are teams which have got financial problems, so they can't buy experienced players. So you'll find that teams where they are full of youthful players, it's probably because there's probably off-field issues and they can't afford to buy the other players, so the young players are having to start and play games. You could argue Sunderland was the exception to the rule in that because they were very much a young side. However, they bought young players for big money, so they were high ceiling young players. So it's a catch-22, isn't it? It's the old saying, isn't it? If you're good enough, you're old enough, aren't you? So age doesn't really matter. But like I said, it depends on your definition of young player. I mean, if you're talking like a Mo Farl or Revan or something like that, irrespective of their age, the question mark is, are they good enough for this level? If you've got a young player that is good enough at this level, then they're going to be in and around the side. And, Parkinson, for example, would do that. I don't see him, or I don't see any manager in this league, unless they have to, taking a risk on young players unless they are ready for this division.
Proven young players,
not necessarily proven, but they see him on the training pitch, don't they? If they're good enough to hold their own, they will feature. But this league has been a graveyard for young players that have been given opportunities and just get absolutely battered and disappear. And it sets players back a couple of seasons. Then you see them on loan in League One for a season or two. So that's why that's why bigger clubs in Championship or Premier League clubs are very wary about where they loan young players out, because when a loan goes wrong, it can really hurt a young player's development.
So again, I have a question for you then. So we just mentioned a minute ago, obviously, to stay away from relegation at all costs, right? That's fine. But as soon as you get away from relegation, you're close enough to be playing for a shot at the playoffs. Once we have a shot of the playoffs, should we be going for that at all costs in order to hope to sneak into playoffs, to then sneak the playoffs and get up to Prem early? Now, the other way of doing it is just to turn around and say that, right, we have a 3-year plan and we've got money to do it. So we should be buying in younger players who have a very, very high ceiling, but probably need a year with the squad to build up their experience in Championship and get to the level we need them to be at. Versus this summer, where we have the option just to buy older, more experienced veterans and give us a potential shot at an earlier stage. Should we be giving up? Now, it's an outside chance anyway, but should we be giving up on the young guys, bringing in experience and just keep changing experience? Or should we be looking to the future?
Who wants to take that one?
I'll say you need a bit of column A and a bit of column B. You've got to run both. You've got to run both programs in parallel. You can't just be one or the other.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think it depends on where you're situated, isn't it? I think if you've got, like you say, if you've got a chance of the playoffs, so if you're sat, I don't know, say 10th, 9th or something like that, and you've been on a good run and it's put you in contention for the playoffs, do you have a bit of realism and say, okay, we've had a good run and it's put us in touching distance of the playoffs? Do we go all out for it and go for it in January, when realistically you are going to face a parachute payment team in those playoffs if you got there? And the question would be is, all right, on any given day, anyone can win, but realistically in this division, the gap between parachute payments and other teams is quite large. If you've got to go through one of those in the playoffs, you've got to be fairly confident you are in a decent state to do that. I think Sunderland, for example, last season, who did do it, of course, would argue that they had proven throughout the season, because they were always in that top 4, that they've been competing in that. If you're a team which have come up, not necessarily from League One, but just come up and had a really good start to the season, or find yourself in that competition, you'd probably got to ask some tough questions internally and say, do we really push the boat out? Do we go and spend that 5-10 million or whatever it is in January to really, and you get there and all of a sudden you don't go up? Does that hurt you in the next season? Those are the questions that people are going to have multiple plates in the air juggling with. It's a tough one. You see a lot of clubs in that predicament sort of go, no one really goes heavy in January on purchasing, but you see a lot of teams will go heavy on loan deals. They will go and pay a lot of money to go and get somebody on loan from the Premier League that's not played a lot of minutes, which will cost them a fortune in sort of loan fees and wages and stuff. So like I said, it depends where you are at that situation, and I think every club has to have a degree of realism alongside a dare to dream almost.
I'll put the numbers behind my theory. This year, I think revenue will be something in the realm of 60 million, because we had 40s pretty comfortably last year, and I think both, that team and us will be looking at similar sort of revenue numbers. Therefore, you can afford to run both programs, and ultimately, we have to. We're building an academy. We're going to be building out young players. You're going to get young players on loan. You're going to get experienced players having a crack. The train rolls on, and at those sort of revenue numbers, you can afford to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, right, and I agree. I do think we'll be in that ballpark revenue-wise, somewhere between 50 and 60, I think. But Yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, like I said it the other day on one of the shows we did, I don't think it matters where we are in January. I think no matter what, they will push the boat out. Whether it's we're in danger of getting relegated, we need to do something, they'll push the boat out. Or if we're in striking distance of the playoffs, let's push the boat out. That's just our ownership. That's just the way they are. I think it's just how they look at it. I struggle to see the scenario where they go into January and think, yeah, you know what, we're all right. I don't see it from this group. I really don't. I don't see it from those guys. You never know. They could do that, but I struggle to see that.
I will straight up agree with that. I don't think there's any scenario that will tell them not to buy players in January. Now, they may not be looking for a specific player in January. That's a scenario where they're just looking for good bargains, good value, improvement on the team. Whatever they can find in January, they can do. But if you're near playoffs, you can push for that extra little bit of kick to hopefully sneak in there. If you're near relegation, obviously you have to go and push the boat out and try and get away from relegation. And if you're mid-table, then you know your team is not good enough because they want to be up in the playoffs. And now is an opportunity to strengthen your squad for next season. If and what is available. As I said, maybe not a specific person, but if you can find someone that is good enough that will improve the team, do it in January, because then you don't have to do it in the summer. And then what other players fall off, you have to reload again in the summer, because we have the money to do it. We're aiming for the top levels, and it's highly unlikely we're going to get there in the summer window. So we have to reload in January. It's just the urgency of what we need would simply be the factor. And we could be in a comfortable place where we don't need anybody. That's actually hopefully where I would like to be. Obviously anything better, but if you are pushing that upper middle table and you don't specifically need anyone, you haven't got any crazy injuries, then it's just, okay, what's available in the market? Who's good? Who's come up? Take them.
I think the other, I wouldn't say elephant in the room, such a thing, but you've got another 20 plus clubs that are going to think the same thing in January. Now, yeah, granted, they're not going to have the sort of revenues like, as Ken's mentioned, we will have and you guys will have. But the Championship is bonkers, as we well know. So whether you've got the revenues or not, there'll be some teams that just go, here's 15 million, you know. Yeah. So irrelevant of whether you make money or not, clubs were bonkers in this league. So you also have to have the caveat of that is, yeah, you may push the boat out and spend some decent money, but then when another 8 sides outside the top 6 have equally gone and spent silly money and improved their squads, then everyone's no better off, are they, in that regard? So that's what makes this league so wonderful. It's just no one knows. It's bonkers to predict.
Yeah, so what's your set here? Young, unproven, standard players, Max Brunt, Dobbo Smith, Arthur Barney. Don't pick Val Atfield Revan as your edge cases. They're too easy. Okay. Arthur is highlighted here. We will pick up on that when we're done with the general conversation here, because that is some good rumor that's going around, and I think that deserves a discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a little later. So, any more on this part at the moment?
I'm good.
We good?
Can I just answer Esteban's comment there? When I said I was talking about Birmingham. Sorry, Esteban.
You're never going to get rid of that. You know that.
I know. I commend him for it. He keeps trying. Bless him. But yeah,
Esteban, that's right. That's what I heard too.
That happens about twice daily in the Discord.
Okay. So what I'll do then is I will pull up my other graphic and we'll have a look at multiple seasons back and see how they compare to this one. Was this a one-off or was it not? So here we go. Oh, never mind. That's just a single season. Here we go. So looking back here, I've removed the teams because it's a different team every season. I missed out on the header on this one. So it is this season and then going back for another 4 seasons. And the final column on the right-hand side is actually the average of the last 5 seasons. Okay. So anybody want to start us off with a point here? Or what jumps out to you, if anything?
Well, there's 2 things that jump out for me. Obviously, last season, 2 teams on 100 points.
Yeah.
And to make the playoffs, typically not 68 points. Let's say it's about 73, 74, 72 to 75, somewhere in there to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Is the general rule.
So extra low last season, because obviously the top 2, top 3 even hoovered up a significant amount of points, which dropped everything down. Okay. Interestingly, then if you look at the relegation numbers, they didn't drop this season. That was actually very high. 49 points to get relegated. Last season was 50. And then the seasons before that looked to be a lot lower: 44, 37, 43, and 45 as an average.
You wanted to be promoted to the Championship 4 years ago for a 37-point relegation. You had a good chance of staying up.
I think that was Wickham. Was that Wickham? 37, I think. Possibly.
Not sure. Wowzers.
Okay.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, but what I will do is let's jump back through each season and do middle to playoffs and relegation. So the season before this most recent one, we had 62 points up to 73. So that was only 11 points. And then from 59 down to relegation, 50. So again, very similar to last season, with roughly 10 each way. Then season before that, we have 63 up to 69. So a lot of teams in there on close points. Only 6 points, the difference there to get a playoff. And then going down, we had 62 dropping down to 44. So that was a much bigger jump, much more comfortable season with 18 points, the difference there. And if you give 2 match distance from the relegation, then you only had 3 teams that were close enough of a 2 match finish. So that season was much more comfortable looking for the relegation zone, bar a couple of teams that were in among it. Going back before then, here we have a 10-point gap again from 12 up to playoffs. So that's starting to look like it's fairly normal season on season. 11 points to get you up to the playoff position. And then going down the other way, we have a big difference here. So we have 27 points between the relegation zone and mid-table. That was a very low season, obviously, we mentioned. And
one thing I noticed,
yeah.
one thing I'm looking at, I'm noticing here, it's kind of surprising, really, with that season, with it when it was 37 points went down, was the last relegation spot.
Mm-hmm.
You would have thought that would have been a high season on the top end, because where are all the points going? But it's actually it's the lowest one up top. It was only 90 to win the league that season, which is surprising. So really, it just tells me that was a really competitive league, and all the points were in the middle. Yeah, it was very the mid table was very competitive. It is, if you notice, it is second highest of those to get into the playoffs on 75 that season. To get 77 was the highest that next season over. But that's interesting, because you would think it'd be, if it's really low to drop down, that you would be high on the top end.
Yeah,
but it's actually kind of worked different.
The other thing to take into consideration is that in quite a few of those seasons, going back, towards 3, 4, 5 seasons ago, you had a lot of points deduction teams down there. We haven't had any points deductions in the Championship for. I mean, yes, okay, you had Sheffield United with 2 points last season, but
No big deal.
No big deal. But we had 9 points going back some years ago. Obviously, you had the Derby had the 21 points, which was the season they got relegated. Reading, of course, had multiple points deductions, I believe. That probably cloudies some of those figures in some way.
I didn't adjust anything for those points.
Actually, John and Aaron, I got a really great point to make here for that season. The team that finished on 37 points was Paddy's favourite team, Peterborough United.
Ooh.
There you go.
Peterborough United, Derby, and Barnsley were the 3 teams relegated that season, and Fulham was the team that won the league that year.
Do you want to hear something really shocking about that 37-point target for Peterborough? Now I remember it.
Go on.
Six of those 37 came against us.
and you only finished 10 points above them, John.
To be fair, if you look through the history, there isn't. I don't think in this graphic, I don't think we've finished above position 19 in any of these seasons.
Actually, I'm going to give you the bottom 5 teams that season. In 24th spot, Barnsley.
Right.
23rd, Derby County, who's still in the Championship. 22nd, Peterborough. 21st, Reading. And 20th, Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of teams we know a bit about.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting. Just interesting when you look that up.
Okay. Then in the last column, I have done average of the 5 seasons. And then we are hitting exactly 10 points from mid-table 62 up to playoff 72. And then 61 down to the relegation drop. And you have 16 points. So in the past, it's been a little stronger between mid-table down to relegation. But the last 2 seasons have been really tight. And it seems like there's a lot to play for up the top, with 10 points being a close estimate a lot of seasons from mid-table.
Paddy, depending on your personality trait, the pessimist, we need 46 points. The optimist, we need 72 points.
45 to survive. That's what we always used to say.
Yeah, people have upped that though.
Yeah,
this is why you're 50.
Yeah. We celebrated when we got to 50. God damn it.
How long did you guys sit on 50? 2 weeks?
No, it was that last game. We won the last game.
Oh, you won. That's right.
Yeah. We won the last game, going to 50 points. But then I think the 4-5 teams above us all won as well. Yeah. And I think Blackburn went to like Leicester, who had won the league at a canter, and beat them at Leicester. I mean, come on.
Actually, I'm just looking at that season, John. 17th all the way down to you in 22nd, all won.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for reminding me, Ken.
Well, it was my pleasure.
We only have ourselves to blame, sadly.
Wow.
Okay. So, do we think we've had enough numbers?
Lots of
Yeah, we've definitely done the whole stat man, haven't we?
Okay. So, let's hit our underachievers and dark horses first. So, pick a team, one each. Who do you think is likely to be an underachiever in this coming season, and who do you think is likely to be a dark horse and do much better than people expect?
Okay. Who wants to go first? I'll go last. I've got 2 teams in a couple of these, so that way I've got a bit of backup if someone picks one of the other teams.
Give me Watford as an underachiever.
Okay. Let's do underachievers then.
Yeah.
John?
I'm going to say Sheffield United, just to be controversial.
Okay.
So what is underachieving for them then? Do you
For
think?
them, out of playoffs.
Out of playoffs.
Out of playoffs. Wow.
That was exactly mine.
Sorry.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, I'll pick the obvious underachiever because they they can't afford to pay anybody. Their payments are going to be late again this month. They definitely wouldn't be thinking they're going to get relegated, but they are going to finish 24th, and that's Sheffield Wednesday.
You can't have them. They're not an underachiever. Everyone
is that an underachiever if we kind of
their entire fan base think they're getting relegated.
Yeah.
They finished 12th.
Come on, kid. You got to step out on a.
You got to bring better game than that. Come on.
Okay,
you want someone.
Okay, you want something better than that. Okay, how about then we'll go for what were the three? Not Leicester. The 3 relegated teams from the Prem.
Leicester,
Ipswich,
and what was the other one?
Southampton.
Yeah, Southampton. Leicester, underachievers. just got rid of their manager, Ruud van Nistelrooy. See you later.
So another one that's going to get whacked with a load of points and is going to have a shitty season.
Yeah, 2 points deductions incoming. Yeah.
So I'm tipping, and for me, underachievement for them is missing the playoffs, and I think they're going to finish 12th.
Okay, so mine was taken. I was going to go with Sheffield United, but I have got one more, and that is Swansea. Ooh. I'll pick them as an outsider, and for them, a bad season will be in that bottom 6. I don't see them sliding all the way down, but if they were to end up between 19th and 21st, that would be a significant underachievement for them.
See, I actually like some of the business they've done. I think they might do better, but
that's the point.
Here's the thing: the fact that they've done a lot of early business makes me wonder if they might be missing out on better deals later on, better players. You know what I mean? It seems like teams that do a lot of early business end up struggling the next season. I don't know. At least it seems like the last few seasons, the teams that we've been paying attention to, I know it's different leagues, but it just seems like that's how it's worked out. So it's an interesting take, but because I've actually liked what they've done.
That Rotherham thing has really scarred you, hasn't it?
It has. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love Ruud 2379. Super confident here. Next year's relegation teams: Oxford, Preston, Hull City. Book it. I'll bet against that for $1.
For $1. Is that Australian or is that?
Have you not seen that? Oh, you might know. Do you know the movie reference for that? I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah, Robocop.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I'm too young. You guys are showing your age. I'm too young for that
one. Whatever. Yep. So, do we want to do surprises then?
Oh yeah. So now, who wants to go first?
Well, I was told I wasn't allowed to pick Birmingham by somebody. And I'll just give some history on this, right? I have picked another team that I think will do well. In the last 15 years, they have been in the Prem for one of those years, and they've perennially lived in the Championship, Birmingham, and literally came down and went straight back up. So considering I wasn't allowed to pick them, the team I have picked is a perennial Championship team who I think will just miss auto promotion this season, and that's Millwall.
Okay. So where do you think they'll finish? Where do you think just out of like 4th or something? Is that what you're thinking?
Yep.
3rd, 4th, somewhere in there.
4th. I'm going for 4th, and because I think every time a team turns up, the players are going to get beat up before they walk on the pitch. It's a play at Millwall. It is a very parochial place to play at.
Go ahead, John.
Okay.
I'm just trying to work out where Ken's got other teams if he's got Millwall 4th.
Yeah.
So, I will be a bit controversial here. Dark horse for me. I'm going to say Swansea, which I know obviously Paddy's got.
Paddy went the other way.
Oh,
Yeah.
Aaron and John have gone against Paddy.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the business. I think the manager, and I think if you look at the form, they are a side which finished the season in decent form, and they haven't. Obviously, the manager was in place then, so you've got the consistency going through, and I like the business. So I think they will start the season strong, if I'm honest.
Okay. What do you think? Do you think playoffs for them? Is that overachieving?
No, I don't think playoffs. I think they'll be in the hunt for the playoffs. So I would possibly have them, I don't know, 8th, 9th, somewhere like that, maybe. I think they overachieved last season as well.
Yeah.
Just quickly to everybody out there, don't forget to like and subscribe. But I'm going to leave you with these experts because I have to fly for work.
No.
So have fun, boys. I can't wait to hear Paddy's choices. That's all I'm going to say.
We'll see you, Ken.
See you guys.
Paddy, you want to go or you want me to go?
Okay, I'll go. Now, I've got a weird one here. Now, I don't quite back this. I don't think this will happen. But a real dark horse to do well this season. Sheffield Wednesday. Right?
Ooh,
now, the reason I'm saying this is if they can stay away from the most of their problems, right, and keep some semblance of their team together, you might find the team come together because they know they're screwed. Now, the same thing happened last season in League One with Reading. They were in all sorts of problems, but they did extremely well. So that would be my contrarian one.
Bold call.
That's really bold. That's really bold.
I see the theory behind it, though. I do agree with that. I think it will all depend on points deductions from the EFL.
Yeah.
And do they hold on? Do they keep Danny?
What players do they keep? Who walks out on them? How bad it gets? Yeah.
If they lose their manager, I would really be nervous.
Well, he's all but gone already,
and
hasn't
he? Sounds like he's going. Yeah, it sounds like he's going. So that'll be interesting.
Is he going to get Leicester? Just as a quick aside here.
I don't know.
Certainly would make the first game of the season interesting, I think, wouldn't it? Haven't they played each other first game of the season?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, you could see it. But I do wonder whether Leicester have got eyes somewhere else, to be honest. I think he would jump at the chance to take the job. But I haven't.
Do you think Leicester will have trouble getting a higher end manager because of the issues they have? Though, you don't think so?
No, because I don't buy in. Sorry, go on.
Go on.
I was going to say
it's
Go on, Paddy. The floor is yours.
Okay. I think at this point it's a known quantity, the problems they have. The manager will come in, he will have expectations for it, he'll have clauses, he'll have agreements based on all the problems they're going to have, and he'll be paid decent money with a team that, okay, this year's probably shit, but following season, if he does well in general, would be a good team to stay with.
Yeah, very similar to that. I think the one thing I always say is managers are similar to players. They have egos the size of planets. So managers managers will go into a club thinking they're the ones that can turn the ship around. They're the ones that can fix the problems. And I think you'll get a decent manager looking at Leicester saying, all right, they may have some off the field issues, but they'll look at the squad and think, well, if I can still keep 70% of that squad together, I'm good enough to put together a side that can get automatic promotion or playoffs. That's what they will think, because, like I said, managers are like players.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think they'll definitely find someone decent.
Yeah,
the team is too big a name not to get someone willing to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I think I was being guilty of, and I think a lot of people are guilty of, is you look through that Leicester squad, and albeit, yes, Vardy is gone, and there's a few, they still got quite a few players around from the last time they were in the Championship. And I won't lie, I remember seeing that Leicester side in the Championship. They were far too good for it. They just destroyed teams. That, you know, yes, some of the bigger players have gone, like Dewsbury Hall left, and so they have lost some what you'd say is big players, but you know they've still got some really quality ones there.
Okay. Well, my dark horse is I'm going to go with Derby County. I think John Eustace is really good at taking a team that's not really shouldn't be that good and overachieve with them. And I don't see any reason why he wouldn't do that again this season. Although I did see they're linked with Patrick Agyemang, and I said in our Discord I wouldn't pay $7 for him, £7 for him. And apparently they've made a $7 million offer for him, which does not compute in my head. But other than that, I do think, I mean, he just knows his way around this league. It seems like he's very good, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them challenging, up further up the table. Probably not get playoffs. I think that might be a step too far, but to be right up in that, right now ballpark wouldn't surprise me. Maybe they finish 10th or 9th, somewhere in there. That I don't think that surprised me at all.
Yeah, it's a good shout, to be fair. Eustace is one of those managers. He just listen to his interviews. I mean, and here's a little tidbit for you. Listen to his interviews and count how many times he says competitive in the interview. That's all he ever. His team have to be competitive. That's it. That's all he demands of his team. And they play a very much style like that. As long as they give 110% and they're in the game, that's all he asks for. So they will rarely get beat, but they will dig out some wins. Like you, I think they won't. I don't think they'll be necessarily challenging for the playoffs, but they will flirt with it during the season.
Yeah, I think so. Here's a shout from Scott.
Yeah.
None of the relegated teams will get promoted. That's a woof.
I think he's talking about League One.
I'm gonna say he must be, otherwise he's been drinking, hasn't he?
That's a bold shout there, Scott. That's a bold shout.
Yeah,
I could see Leicester not getting promoted. The other two,
yeah.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe Southampton, if they struggle with a new manager, slow start, and maybe the man. I don't know how the ownership is there. I don't know a lot about Southampton. Would they be the type that would pull the trigger quick and then try to bring another manager in if they weren't happy? If they did that, does it cause even more disruption? And then maybe they kind of miss out because of all that. That's a possibility. Ipswich, I think they're going to piss this league. I think they're going to cruise.
Yeah, I still think even with Southampton, the chances of them falling out of the top 6 are quite high. And let's just go for a mad case here and say that Birmingham and Wrexham get top 2. That then pushes at least 2 of the 3 into the playoffs, and one of them will take out a playoff.
I don't know.
Is very, very likely.
I want some of what Patty's smoking.
I'm just making a hypothetical. I'm trying to give the most plausible way that.
Okay, here. How about this? Maybe Sheffield United takes one of those spots.
Yeah,
because that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Top 2. Okay.
And then maybe, I don't know. Maybe Birmingham. I actually, that wouldn't surprise me actually if they were in with a shout, depending on what they do this summer. But yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, there's teams that could do. I just don't see anybody. I don't see anybody beating Ipswich. I think Ipswich are bang on to win this thing.
I think Sunderland winning the playoffs last season has probably hurt a lot of teams with playoff ambitions this season, because I think obviously Sheffield United, albeit changing manager, parachute payments. I mean, they still got Yeah, they've still. I mean, you still look at their squad; it's a ridiculously good squad for this level.
Yeah.
And then, as much as Southampton have been selling a few players, but I mean, they're selling players for 20, 30 million quid here. You know, they're going to replace these players with 20, 30 million quid's worth of players. You know, the sad truth is, as much as we all would love both our teams to be up there, we're not competing with that, not at the moment. So yeah, it's and that's the realization of what's in front of us, is that to get in that top 6, you are swimming with sharks with rather large wallets, and already Championship / Premier League squads.
And that's what makes it so difficult to get out of this league, because the sharks keep coming every year. You get a new group of 3.
Yeah,
you know, they just keep coming. So, it's tough. I can't see a situation where none of the relegated Premier League teams don't go up. I think probably 2 at least, get up. I think Southampton and Ipswich probably both go up. Yeah. Definitely Ipswich though.
That's the problem that faces all of us at the moment, is that realistically, come the end of the season, in the playoffs, 2 of the 4 sides are going to be parachute payment sides.
Yeah. Agreed. Absolutely. Okay. What else we have, Patty?
Quick question here from Scott. Are Luton getting a parachute payment in League One? Yes, they have their second parachute payment, even though they're in League One, and that will be it for their parachute payments.
Yep. And then do they still get, I know it's not a lot, but in there, like, don't you get, when you go down from the Championship, like 900,000 or something, or 800? You would know, you might know.
You get some sort of, it's not called a parachute payment,
right? But it's something
it's something similar. But also the thing that Luton will have is the PSR rules, which they're going down to in League One, is slightly more lax for them as a newly relegated side. So the percentage of the wage or whatever it is in League One is a higher percentage for them.
Yeah. I'd say they probably I mean, who knows? Because we saw, Sunderland went down to League One and struggled with a parachute, even though they had a parachute payment. I don't think Luton are as big a mess as what Sunderland were, though, when they went down there. Do you disagree with that, John? I mean, I don't. I think I could see them bouncing right back up.
I think they should. I mean, they are a notoriously well-run club. They pretty much banked the Premier League money. They didn't overspend when they went up. That they've obviously got the new stadium and all that sort of thing going off the pitch. But I think the problem that they probably face is, which I hear a lot of League One on teams and people on podcasts moaning about, is that everyone wants to come down and do a Birmingham now and just like spend tons of money and guarantee you go back up. Everyone seems to think it's a bad thing what we did, and we set a bit of a precedent of, like, because Luton could do a similar sort of thing with the money they have and the squad they already have. They could go out and spend 25 million quid this summer and build a side which realistically no one should get near. Question is, will they do it? I don't think they will, because I think their owners aren't that way inclined.
Yeah, I mean, they could do like you guys did, spend 25 million on a penalty taker. I mean, it's crazy what you can do when you got that kind of money.
Exactly. Remind me how many your players scored any goals in the Championship? Okay.
Shoot. Hey, he scored. We just signed one. He scored 10. He scored 10 last season in the Championship. He scored 10 more than any of your players scored in the Championship last season, John.
Who's that? Oh, Ryan Hardy. Right. Sorry, I forgot who you were talking about there for a second. Yeah. Who did he play for?
I don't know. One of them teams got relegated.
Right. That was it.
That's right. Oh, shoot. That's good.
Okay. So back to the comment from earlier. Let's move on a little bit and go something pretty direct to Wrexham, because it's interesting at the moment.
Yeah.
So, goalies. How important is your goalie in the Championship, John?
Well, I would say quite important, but then again, I'm not going to lie. We survived in the Championship with Lee Camp in goal for a couple of seasons, who is quite honestly the worst goalkeeper you have ever seen in your life. But he was a bit of a cult hero. So I can't really stand here and say it's critical to your team. But yeah, I think it depends how you play. In your case, I think he's. I wouldn't say it's going to be all or end all, but you just need somebody solid that calms the defense down, really.
Okay, so tough question. Don't get this one wrong, John. Straight at you again. Arthur Okonkwo, is he a Championship level keeper? And should we be looking to find someone better?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Fair point. So, getting to the point, Aaron, who is the rumor that we have signed as another goalkeeper?
Danny Ward is supposed to be coming in for. I'd have to read the tweet again, but he was either in today or coming in tomorrow for a medical, and possibly to sign. He is a Welsh international goalkeeper. He's been at Leicester, I believe, and from what we've heard, he's not been that great. He's been a backup. So I don't think they're bringing him in necessarily to challenge Okonkwo. But I had said this a while back when we first got linked to him about a month ago. I think it doesn't surprise, because we all kind of thought, okay, we've got Burton and Okonkwo, two pretty solid goalkeepers. We like them both. Maybe we bring in another 21 just to save that spot in the 25, and not have to register our third keeper. But with the Okonkwo possibly getting a call up from Nigeria for the what's it called, the African Nations tournament. Yeah,
he'll be gone for a couple of weeks.
If he could miss 3-4 weeks or something like that. It's a pretty long tournament in January, and if he misses a handful of games there, obviously we're all okay with if Burton's available and can come in and cover those games. But if you know that's likely to happen, and I'm sure Parkinson would probably, I'm sure the Nigerian manager's been in touch, and I'm sure they've kind of got an idea that might happen. And at least that's the rumor. You would like to have another good goalkeeper. Now, does Danny Ward challenge Burton for that second spot? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've never seen him play. So this is.
So as far as I'm aware, Danny is acting as a backup keeper for Wales.
Right.
He's not their first keeper, first off.
No.
So I pulled up his stats on FOTMOB, and what greeted me as it opened was Championship 2016-2017.
Yeah.
Was the record they're showing me here. And it's 11 clean sheets, 52 goals conceded, saved 1 out of 7 penalties in that season. Now, he has played for Leicester since July 2018 until so far. And he's played 52 matches. In how many years? 7 years? He's played 52. So he has been the backup. A lot of complaints that he's not good enough, that he wasn't good enough, obviously, when he did play. But it's an unknown. It's training solidly with the Prem team and being the backup keeper, and you never know how good they are in those scenarios. Look at Burton. Burton was a backup keeper. He never got a real shot. And then when he did get his one shot with us, he played extremely well.
Really good. Yeah.
For unfortunately a short period of time, and he went down in the same season as AO. So leaving aside the AO going away on his jolly to play for his country, which is fine. Surely Parky is gun shy about only having two solid keepers.
Only having two solid, right?
Because he has gone through two solid keepers in a season and had issues and problems. So when the rumor first came up about Danny Ward and people were saying, "Oh, not a good idea," maybe it's not a good idea. I was more worried he would be far too expensive. So leaving that aside, because it's not my money and I don't know how much he'll be on. I was thinking we could potentially find someone better to be within the group of three, and they're all fighting to see who is the best between them. But yeah, so this looks like Danny Ward is potentially coming in as number 2. Or is he even challenging AO?
He may not. Here's the way I look at it. We're upgrading our 3 from Okonkwo, Burton, and Howard to Okonkwo, Burton, and Ward. Yes. And I think that is an upgrade.
Yeah.
So I think that's how you got to look at it. So that's, I mean, I'm not, I've seen a lot of people really get bent out of shape about it. And I'm like, why?
You can't talk about AO. You can't have a rational conversation about AO, because the second you say anything about it, you get thrown. We have Burton. Burton's just as good. And he appeared just as good until his leg didn't work anymore. Unfortunately.
Matt out. This is a good shout, because this was talked about. There was a question when Burton was in goal that AO would have to fight for his spot because Burton was playing so well.
Playing well.
So,
until Burton lost his leg.
Until he got hurt.
Now,
and then Howard had to step in.
You don't particularly blame a keeper for that. But if you had to have Burton for an entire season, would you be comfortable he would last? No one knows.
I don't know. Yeah.
Don't know.
And to be fair, Arthur hasn't went a whole season without getting hurt either. He's played 2 seasons with us and he's been hurt both of them. I don't think either one of them were necessary. I don't think there were things that make you think, oh, well, he's going to get hurt all the time. But it's just, he still, though, to that point, he hasn't finished a complete season for us yet. Yeah. So
I think Ward is, if he is signing, is a typical Parky signing, isn't he? He's an experienced guy who clearly won't be number 1. He won't challenge for that number 1 jersey because, quite frankly, he ain't good enough. Sorry to disappoint everyone. But in a case where your main goalkeeper is injured or African Cup of Nations, Parky's got a guy there which, he's experienced. He's been number 2 at a big club in the Premier League. He will have confidence that he can step in for some games. The question, or the thing I would say, is AO for you guys is on trial next season for me. I think he has got to prove next season that he is good enough. I think he's a decent keeper. I think he is championship quality. Whether you will want him as your number 1 by the end of this coming season, I don't know. I got a feeling, I'm not sure his ceiling is as high as many think, if I'm being honest. I think you might want a better keeper going forward.
That leads to a significant problem in my mind. Is you bring in a keeper now, potentially who's an expensive one with all the experience he has, and you have your 3 keepers. Well, what happens if we get to January and AO isn't good enough and we've swapped AO out into Ward or into Burton and they did no better? Then suddenly we find ourselves in January with 3 keepers, all of a similar level. And then we have to say, okay, we need to go out into the market and we need to find someone better. We're going to have to pay for it. We're going to have to do what we need to do. So from a strategic point of view, could we be better off managing with a 3rd keeper? We have a 3rd keeper at the moment. What's his name? He never gets to play for us.
Luke. I can't even remember which one. McNicholas.
McNicholas is still with us. So he's a 3rd keeper at the moment. We have got one. We like Burton. We think he's basically nearly as good as AO. different style, different problems or whatever. Not necessarily as big a high ceiling, whatever. But we have 3 keepers. Survive until January. And if it turns out that AO can't step up, any of them, basically, if any of them can't hold it, we need to go out in the market and get someone better than AO. Are we better off to start that in January?
Here's a different question for you then.
Okay.
If AO, for argument's sake, say isn't good enough, does Parky replace him in January, or does he just go and sign better defenders to protect him better? Because managers will do that. I don't know why, but managers are really reluctant to replace goalkeepers, especially mid-season. Would he go out and spend more money on a new centre-back or a couple of new centre-backs better than what you've got to improve that defence, just to add better protection in front of him, rather than addressing the elephant in the room?
It's an interesting point. It's different.
Now, in this scenario that you're bringing up, I think it's very possible we will end up in a 2 things being true scenario. If AO isn't good enough, part of the reason could be our defense is not good enough. I don't think we will have such an amazing defense kind of in that scenario that it's AO on his own is the problem. We'll still need defenders. But yes, I get your point. So is he bringing in defenders purely to protect AO, or are the defenders also part of the problem? I would suggest that they are very likely also part of the problem, rather than, because we do need upgrades there. And going down this road now, if we want to sidestep it a little bit, there are other defensive players that we are hoping are good enough. Kluivert, for one. He could in 2 years' time be in the Prem, whether we're there or not. Maybe we've sold him off for a nice whack of cash that he gets there before we do, or maybe he's not good enough. Now, we all hope he is. I believe he could be, but until we prove everybody in the Championship, we don't know. So where are we upgrading this summer? How many? It's an interesting problem, and this is a first season issue. We haven't been up there. We don't have a team ready this season yet until we buy people in. So where do we end up? I don't know.
Yeah, well, the lack of business at the moment is kind of like, doesn't give you any indication of.
Yeah, we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, you don't know where Parky thinks you're weak right now.
Mm-hmm. I would be surprised if we don't get at least 2 defenders in, 2 center backs. He's gonna know he's gonna need competition in that back 3. I could see him bringing in 2. I could see him bringing in another defensive midfielder. And obviously we've been strongly rumored for a left wing back. He's definitely going to be. He's going to know he's got to stiffen up. As good as our defense was, he's going to know he's got to stiffen it up some more.
Yeah.
Now we're stepping up a level, and he loves bringing in defender. Matt out just said a Parky loves defender. Yeah. So yeah, I think we will. I think we got to let. It's hard to make that judgment. It's hard to really talk about it right now because we don't know what's going to happen. This conversation may be completely different by the end of the window because we may have brought 2 really, really top center backs in, and so then maybe a little more focus will be on the goalkeepers. Are they good enough? Because we've improved the defensive enough in front of them, or we think we have. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Still early.
So, circling back to this comment from Scott with the keeper, 3 keepers in a squad of 25. I have 3 just get an emergency loan. Now, I have heard numerous times and have not confirmed it for myself that there's an issue with us being a Welsh team that we are not able to get an emergency loan. And that it's a problem with international clearances, blah, 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 etc. Now, I had considered this myself from a point of view, have 2 main goalkeepers, both very solid, which we do with Burton. And if both of them go down, go out into the market, find a Premier League goalie who's second or third. We have the money in this scenario to bring someone in to cover that. But I do believe there's an issue there with the Welsh FA and problems with the allowance of an emergency loan, that we cannot have it.
Yeah.
So if that's the scenario, then we just can't do it.
Yeah, Sean Harvey talked about that on the show he did with Fearless and Devotion. He said they had a player in that they were going to wanted to use as an emergency loan, and they couldn't. It wasn't allowed. They wouldn't allow him to do it, and so he couldn't join us. I guess he came in and trained with us for a couple sessions or something, and then we found out we couldn't do it. So yeah, I think there's definitely a issue there with the international clearances and all that crap.
Yeah,
the rules are different with Wales.
Yeah, I think Scott's probably, his comment is right about pretty much every other team in the Championship. Everyone else will have 2 senior pros as goalkeepers, and then notoriously you will have a really young academy keeper. You won't have what you would classify as your what we would probably say is your third best goalkeeper. They usually get sent out on loan because of the way that the emergency loan market works, is that you
can save your ass.
Yeah, it basically, if you've got an academy guy that's played a handful of appearances on benches and stuff in EFL Cup matches or league matches, according to the EFL, he qualifies. So you don't then qualify for the emergency loan. So what you'll find is a lot of clubs will sling that kid out on loan somewhere to League One, League Two, and then their third choice keeper will be like the under-18s academy kid who has no experience. So essentially, if your 2 main keepers get injured and you're looking at this kid, you go to the EFL and say, haha, we've got like a child here. We need an emergency loan. So, yeah.
Okay, so CR has a nice comment here. Why would Parky think Sam Smith has to compete for his job and Arthur and Burton don't? Agreed. But is bringing Danny Ward in on a similar level competing? Maybe it is.
Well, and to be fair, we don't know that that's what Parky thinks yet. He might be thinking, I want to play them both at the same time. We haven't seen it. We've not played a game yet. So we don't know that Smith is competing with Hardy just yet. We assume that. But he may be thinking, I'll play them both. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I take the point, though. Yeah, you want everybody. Everybody should be getting challenged. You want to improve to where everybody's getting challenged for their spot.
Can I say something controversial about that?
No, you can't.
Okay.
Go on.
No, I was going to say the simple answer or the controversial answer is that strikers are harder to find and is a harder position to play than a goalkeeper. You will find a middle of the road goalkeeper quite easy. Finding a striker that can score goals in the Championship, gold dust.
Yeah. Yep. It's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Luke, why haven't we got any Brazilian players yet? Okay. Right. This topic, I think, is covered. Have we anything else that we need to cover today?
I don't know. Was there anything else? You guys hit the Ruud Van Nistelrooy leaving on Friday, right? You and Josh hit that?
Yes, we were going through all the ones, yeah. Just on that then, actually, maybe what we should do is have a quick talk through Sheffield Wednesday and Leicester again, just briefly, because we've been discussing the idea of talking about Sheff Wednesday, and now Leicester has its own issues. So let's dive into that just a little bit more. So the scenario, anybody want to take it for Sheffield Wednesday?
Yeah, well, I think the latest one is the chairman came out, didn't he, and released a statement. I can't remember, was it last weekend or beginning of the week or something? Essentially outing the potential consortium that wanted to buy it, claiming they didn't have proof of funds. I would openly say I don't trust every word you hear from Chansiri's mouth, or his statement, shall we say. But it did read a little bit. It's one of those. I think it did shed some sort of cloudiness over this consortium, where you do kind of wonder, okay, are they right to take over? The one big thing, or there was two big things that came out of the statement for me, was that Chansiri claimed that there was no proof of funds. The first answer to that is, well, it's not your job to investigate whether there's proof of funds. That's what the EFL is there for, and they will do those checks, so you don't have to. So that's a pointless argument. The one worry I had was that he essentially wanted a £5 million loan as part of the agreement up front. Essentially to pay the wages. And he was quite critical of them not paying the money, which I kind of thought, well, if you're a potential buyer, why would you loan £5 million to a person that has no money, even though he says, I will pay you back upon, completion of the deal or whatnot, or, or if the deal broke down, I'll pay you back. What with
what?
Right.
So let's be honest. If you're a guy that's got £5 million in spare change to throw at this deal, you're not going to just loan it to a guy with no money, are you? A lot of it didn't make a lot of sense to me. It sounded very much of a guy trying to justify not wanting to sell. And I think the second tier podcast, which I listened to earlier, where they had Kieran Maguire on, and I think the initial one where he said Chansiri wanted 340 million for Sheffield Wednesday was his original price.
Originally.
That unfortunately, that statement alone just shows you the sort of guy you're dealing with here, living in cloud cuckoo land.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a quick search there actually, and there's an article came out today, which is interesting. Now, I don't know that I particularly believe this paper, but anyway, Sheffield Wednesday's players will ask the EFL to send them money for their wages. The squad are due to be paid tomorrow, but many will go without a salary for the second month running. It opens the door for some to leave, but those who are staying are planning talks with the PFA. They want the EFL to divert the monthly TV money to them and not owner Chansiri. No idea whether that's even possible or legal or whatever, but they're going to ask. Roll's future is in doubt, but some of his team may move on after their contracts run out. Failure to pay wages for the second month in a row would also lead to charges and penalties, points penalties. So the club is already under restriction for their players, which we're aware of. We believe new wages amount to 7,000 a month that they're allowed to do. Contracts can't be longer than 12 months, and they cannot make transfer payments for players either. So it heavily restricts the chances of bringing people in. So will Chansiri have to try and do a fire sale of some of his players for anybody who has value in order to get some cash, in order to pay some bills?
They're also under another charge, aren't they? Because he's failed to pay the HMRC as well, which is a separate charge, I believe. So no idea what that entails, to be honest. It's just an absolute mess, isn't it, to be honest?
Disaster. Seems like that one's going to end up I have a feeling that's going to end up very bad. Like I don't think it's going to be simple. I don't think he'll allow somebody just to come in and buy it from him. I think it's going to get ugly. I don't know. Doesn't look good.
I think the problem that Sheffield Wednesday fans are probably going to find out, very much like we had with our old ownership when it was clear they had to go and they were looking to sell. The vultures and the tire kickers will be all around you. There'll be plenty of people thinking they can pick up the club on a cheap buck. I won't say, whether they have any sort of genuine intentions, but there'll be plenty out there which, are just looking to make a quick buck, and they don't really care about the club at all. Those will circle Sheffield Wednesday like mad now, and anyone you hear come out in media or anywhere, that was the first thing I thought when you had one of the consortium guys on local radio doing an interview. I thought, don't trust anyone who's a potential buyer of the club that comes out in public and says, "Oh, hi, look at me, I want to buy." The proper owners and real proper businessmen do it behind the scenes. You don't hear a peep out until they've already taken over. So I'm always wary of people that are quite keen to show the public face of it before they've actually signed a contract to buy the club.
Yep. So moving on then to Leicester City, who have their own problems. So they're after just getting relegated down into the Championship. First parachute payment, so they'll have a bit of cash on hand. But they haven't been doing particularly well in their finances. In the Prem, they've been playing all sorts of fun and games and have pissed off those that be with the powers in the Championship and also in the Premier League. And now it looks like they have run out of legal runway in order to try and escape it. And it looks like everyone is expecting them to get a nice big slap for the first time they've actually been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And 12 points is the expected minimum. Will it be more than that? I'm guessing not. But a lot of people seem to be saying that they're really going to come down heavy and could be even higher than that. So first of all, that's it. So 12-point deduction potential. Does that take them out of the top two?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the 12-point deduction is only one charge, isn't it? They've got two charges they could get.
They could be facing two charges. That was what came out. That's what I saw in the Kieran Maguire thing on with the second tier. That was what we spoke about.
And it all depends on the amount, shall we say, that they've gone over. That's essentially the criteria of what amount of points you get hit by. So and without knowing the figures, no one seems to know, but the general feeling for that first charge is 12 points, which means it's got to be a hefty one. And I think Kieran Maguire also mentioned they've tried to essentially hide it and not play ball with the EFL, which means that they're probably going to get hit with more than that. And then the second charge, I have no idea what they're looking at.
Well, one thing I don't like is that they apply a point to a charge, and then if you play nicely with them, they reduce those points. I don't like that. I think it's a stupid system.
I do.
Right. I'll tell you for why. Because what I would do is I would work it the other way around. I wouldn't be working the carrot. I'd be working the stick. And I would say that when you get caught for your charge, it is expected of you to be open and honest and forthcoming. And if we feel that you are not being open and forthcoming with all the information needed when needed, then your 12 points becomes 24. Not the other way around. Your 12 points doesn't become 6 or whatever, because Sheffield Wednesday, they had a 4-point deduction and they got it reduced to 2. And basically the other 2 was put on probation. As long as you don't mess up again, we won't reapply it. So I would personally go the other way and say that if you don't work with us to get through the cases as fast as possible, to get things resolved quickly, then you get increased, not decreased, by being helpful. Right. Would be my point on that. And another thing that came out in that interview that I thought was really interesting, and I've always partly thought this as well, points for certain teams don't really fucking matter. If you are, especially in the Premier League, if you are strong enough and if you're at the top of the table, you can have a bad season, you can take a load of points deduction. It means nothing because you're not going to get relegated. You lose a bit of money, okay, you drop down 6, 7, 8 spots in the league, lose a bit of cash at the end, 16 million? Who cares? You're talking hundreds of millions every season. But it was said in that interview as well, why did they not, upon knowing that they were going to get relegated last season, turn around, play nice, hand everything over and say, look, we want to do a deal. We want to get all this sorted. We don't want the hassle, and whack us now. Take the points this season, get relegated. The points are gone and done, and all these charges are finished. Like, what are they thinking? I don't get that.
Yeah.
Greed, isn't it? Greed. They just assumed they'd get away with it.
They've gotten away with it so much they think they can get away with it again.
I mean, you have to give them credit though. The solicitor or the lawyer, or whoever it was, who argued their original case, which they got away with, he actually got them to agree that actually they didn't belong in. They weren't actually legally in the EFL or the Premier League when the charges were brought to them. So they weren't actually in a league. That was their argument, because they had just got promoted. I mean, how you win that legally, I do not know.
It was actually a fairly simple technique. Basically, it was a difference between dates that the Championship use and that the Premiership use, and there was that margin in between that is just no man's land. Technically, you fall outside of both. It is stupid.
Well,
now, I'll give you another example of such stupidity that was very successful for some people. Amazon, unless they've changed it now, but previously, Amazon had their head office in Ireland. And the reason they had their head office in Ireland is because they could claim that they were outside the US for basically their head office, so they don't have to pay taxes to the US. And then with the laws we have for people having their head office here, because the majority of their product and what they build or service is not in the country, technically they don't have to pay taxes to us either. So that allows massive companies to be in a complete no man's land limbo for a lot of their taxes. And it's why Ireland actually has so many head offices structured there. They don't do anything else. They just have a lot of staff. They bring in their telesales staff and other stuff, a couple of hundred staff, maybe 1,000, whatever. That's enough. No tax, very low taxes, and they get away with it. Similar idea, but that was left there.
It'll be interesting to see where, if Leicester play ball now with the charges, you know, do they hold their hands up and accept them and just get the hit over and done with, or do they fight it? Potentially, do they think legally we might be able to drag this out for a season and then get back promoted?
Get promoted again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the rules are different, so they would still get hit. But I suppose their argument would be as well, if you get hit by a points deduction in a big points deduction in the Premier League where you're not likely to survive anyway, oh well, you know, it won't happen. But it'd be interesting to see whether their ownership and the people that run Leicester these days decide actually, yeah, okay, you got us, we'll take our medicine now, or do they fight it again?
It would be an interesting question, because what they could do this season is take their 12 points that initially come up, slow down and fight everything else, and see if they can survive, get into the playoffs and have a shot to go back up through the playoffs. They could very well accept the 12 points this season coming, get into the playoffs, get through the playoffs and get promoted again, and then get up. If it somehow turns out that they're not going to make playoffs at the end of near the end of the season, they can take their extra points, stop all their challenges, accept another whack of points, and it's gone. They just have a second season in League One, in Championship. Sorry.
If we're saying 12 points takes them out the automatics, which I believe it does as well, does more than 12 points, like say 15, 18, does that knock them out the playoffs?
Maybe not.
It'd be close, won't it? It depends.
Well, I'm just thinking, if you're talking about, like, say, I think it's like an average of 90 points for automatics. If we're using that as an example, if you're taking, say, 15, 18 points off that, you're starting to get fairly close to that line for the playoffs, where you're thinking, well,
okay. So we're looking at wrong one. This one. So we're looking at an average for the playoffs of 72 points. So if we're saying they would potentially be a top two team fighting for those top 2 places, you'd put them on about 90 points, even if they slipped just a little bit. So then from 90 points, you have 72 to remain in the playoffs on average. You've got about 16 points there. Plus, if you are actually in the top 2 and a little higher, it's possible. It's possible to take the hit and survive. Yeah.
But the thing I'm trying to get to is, like, if it's more than 12, they're under pressure. They've almost got to go pretty sort of faultless through the season then to just make the playoffs, which in this division, where everyone knows, is really hard to do. So
yeah, they'd almost have to do well enough to win the league to make the playoffs.
Yeah, to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Which is, it's not undoable, but it's also maybe not necessarily that likely. So,
especially if they're hit with PSR stuff and they have to potentially sell players maybe under a business plan. Yeah, it's lots of question marks over Leicester.
Yeah, so the other big question mark then is just simply the owners, and can they afford to keep the club running? Now, this is outside the football scenario side of it, but their main business is duty-free shopping around the world. They run a lot of the duty-free shopping at the airports. That has taken an absolute tanking since COVID, hasn't recovered to the levels that they wanted to. There's potential that their King Power company that run them is going to go under completely. And will that leave them in a scenario that they can no longer fund Leicester? Now, obviously, they got money coming in, but they've always had problems, PSR, everything else. So could that tank the whole club? They could be the next one in serious trouble if that happens.
I think they'd likely sell, wouldn't they? In all honesty.
Probably.
I think the problem, the big sort of grey area is the PSR stuff will probably take a huge chunk off the price tag of the club. But you know, you're talking about a club which won the Premier League 9-10 years ago. It's still going to be value-wise silly money. So yeah, and plus I don't think the ownership would do anything to not necessarily harm the club, but they would try and do the best for the club in the whatever predicament they find themselves in. It's not like a Chancery where you just that guy could see the club go to the wall. The Leicester owners would, you know, if financially they were in the mire, they would essentially make sure that the club would go on and it would be in the best hands, I think.
Well, they're definitely a club someone would want to come in and get, and potentially at a reasonable premium. Obviously, you want discounts for being Championship and that sort of scenario and other problems, but it's a club having won the Prem that people would want to come in and revive and get back to fighting in the Prem. Okay, so guys, that is an hour 50 for tonight. I think we've covered lots of different sections. Everybody happy on that bombshell that Leicester are not going to make the playoffs and they're going to get sold?
Yeah, maybe a little premature, but we'll see. That wouldn't be surprising, really, at the rate things are going.
Okay, everybody, let's end on that cheery note tonight, huh? Look at all these faces. Look at all the smiles. Okay, take care, everyone. We will see you again soon. Bye.
Bye, everybody.